Come on, Omar. Let's do something. Where's the moves? Where's the trades? Where's the additional upgrades to this team? We've been waiting. You spoiled us in the early parts of free agency. You spoiled us throughout your whole tenure here thus far, honestly. Like what you've done since you became the GM in the 2023 offseason has been phenomenal. But we need more. Or I guess was it the 2022 offseason? I'm sorry. Yeah, it was the 2022 offseason. I'm getting all my years mixed up here. It's 2024 now. Last offseason was 2023. The year prior, 2022. That makes sense, right? You go from 2024 to 2023 to 2022. Either way, I thought we were going to get some action last week. I thought we were going to get some trades. I thought we were going to get a signing. I guess technically we did get a signing. Technically we did. And that was Michael Pruitt. Cue the Snoop Dogg meme. Who? I have no clue who this guy is. He's been in the league for a while. He's been in the league since like 2013, 2014. Here's the graphic. We signed him to a one-year deal. Tight end. 2015. Came into the league in 2015. Age 23. He's been here for, is that 9 years? 2015, 2016, 17? I think that's 9 years. Yeah. Been in the league 9 years. I have no clue who this guy is. But the Steelers signed him. And based off the teams he's played for, two of the teams, we can see why. Tennessee Titans from 2018 to 2021. Who was there with the Tennessee Titans? Arthur Smith, the Steelers' current offensive coordinator. And then in the Falcons, or with the Falcons in 2022 and 2023, who was the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons those 2 years? Steelers' current offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. So there is a familiarity between this guy and the Steelers coordinator, Arthur Smith. It makes sense. We get it. That has been a trend this offseason for some of these Steelers signings on offense. Cordarrelle Patterson. Who else? I know there were talks of us potentially signing Jonnu Smith. But you got Van Jefferson. He was with the Falcons with Arthur Smith briefly. What other signing? That's two guys. There's definitely more. There's at least one or two more connections with Arthur Smith signings we've made. But this is the latest with Michael Pruitt. You look at these stats, man. Nothing to get excited about. The max receiving yards he's had in his career thus far is 150 yards back in 2022, 2 years ago. 150 yards and 4 touchdowns. At least he's efficient with it. You see he's got 16 receptions and has 4 touchdowns out of those 16 receptions. So 1 out of every 4 passes that's thrown to him is going to be a touchdown, at least based off that season. That's not bad. He was 1 for 9 in 2023, 3 for 14 in 2021. Yeah, there's a chance you throw him the ball, he's going to get a touchdown. But the main thing with him, obviously the numbers don't really show his worth because he's a blocking tight end. He's going to be utilized heavy just for blocking purposes, which is, I don't know if it's a good thing or if it's concerning because we already have a Darnell Washington. We have a Connor Heyward. What's this guy going to be doing? Like, how big of a role is he going to be playing? Because if you look at his offensive snaps for some of these seasons with the Titans in Atlanta, he was getting out on the field like 30 or 40% of the time. That's a lot if you're not going to contribute anything in the passing game for just being a one-trick pony, for tipping the defense off for what we might be doing when you're on the field. Like, no one's got to guard you. Like, that's a little bit concerning. Like, if you're a blocking tight end, but you could do some stuff in the passing game, like, that's something you're looking for in offense. Like, Darnell Washington, that's what we expect him to be. He's known more for his blocking. He was the best blocking tight end coming out of the draft last year, but we think he actually has upside as a receiver. Can keep the defense off balance. This dude's been in the league for 9 years, and you see he's got $150 for receiving yards as his best season. But he must be doing something right if he's been in the league 9 years and has just been known for a blocker. Like, he must be doing something right in that category. So, like, I'm not against this move. I find it interesting now with how the tight end room is going to be playing out. How much work is this dude going to have? Or how many tight ends are we going to have on the field at the same time? I know Arthur Smith is known for that, but are we really going to be overhauling this offense like that? I don't know. I guess we just got to wait and see. But yeah, that was a signing we made at the end of last week. And again, had no clue who he was, but it could have some ripple effects. As you know, we're talking through this right now. Like, what happens with the Connor Heyward? What happens with the Darnell Washington? Does this dude become our tight end too? Or is he just an insurance policy just to have around to maybe teach some of the other tight ends in the room the Arthur Smith system? Don't really think there's much downside to it, but I feel like if he does get a pretty big role this year, that means Darnell and maybe Connor Heyward aren't being utilized to their fullest potential. Or something happened. There became some type of disconnect with those two and Arthur Smith with his system. That would be my assumption there. But before we move on, we're gonna be talking Steelers draft here. I got some good trade scenarios, good trade ideas. A couple for trading up, a couple for trading down, and a couple for just trading straight up for a player that's out there in the league right now. So who is here? Let me give you guys some shout outs. D-Max already got his draft takes on deck. Says trading back and not getting a right tackle is worthless. Fair. Chad Trimpy says Malachi Corley, soon to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I like his game. He's getting a lot of Deebo Samuel comparisons. I kind of see that. He doesn't have as big of a frame as Deebo Samuel. I see some AB stuff with him, man. Obviously, not the route runner that AB was, at least in the league. If AB was the AB that we know him to be or knew him to be in his prime here in Pittsburgh, he wouldn't have been drafted in the 6th round. So he wasn't a complete prospect coming out in his rookie season either. So, like, there's little semblances I see from Curly that goes back to, like, AB. Like, a little reminiscent, man. Little bit. I don't think to the degree of Zay Flowers, because I know we talked a lot about Zay Flower and AB comparisons last year, but I see a little bit of that. Yeah, and Steelers aren't opposed to drafting small receivers at all. We've done that a lot over the last, like, 2 decades. Steeler fan 532 says, Deke, missed a few weeks. Can't wait to hear you go. What you got, brother? Sorry. 532 repping. Yes, sir. Steeler fan 532 also says, need a wide receiver 1 or 2 and a center. Would love Justin Jefferson. I think we all would love to have Justin Jefferson. I'm not too keen on the idea of trading multiple first-round picks and potentially George Pickens to get him, though. That's the problem. Maybe just 3 first-round picks and we get Justin Jefferson. I don't want to give up Pickens, man. I don't want to give up Pickens. If it's just draft picks, wouldn't be opposed. Djax, Deke, this is the longest you have went without mentioning Little Hands Pickett. Can I ask why? Well, he's not on the team anymore. That's the number one reason. Not on the squad. I said, what was it? A few streams ago. I think it was last month. At some point last month, I was like, I think this is going to be the last stream for a while talking about Pickett. I don't think we're going to have to really talk about him again for a good while. Who knows what happens? I mean, stories pop up, headlines pop up, but yeah, it's been a while. Like, I think we can have, remember I brought up the what's it called? It was that thing from The Office. I mean, you see them all the time at, like, shops and stuff, like workshops and everything. It's like the work loss or the accident. Oh my goodness, I'm botching this up so bad. We've gone so many days. We've gone X amount of days without an accident, basically. I was saying we should do that we have gone X amount of days without mentioning Kenny Pickett. And I think up to this point, before you said it in the comments, it's been almost a month. It's been a minute. since I've mentioned Pickett on any of my shows. We've definitely brought him up on the podcast, though, so I don't know if that counts or not. It's been a minute since I brought up Pickett, but now we just talked about him. So there you go. 0 days we've gone without talking about Kenny Pickett. Work loss prevention. Okay, there you go. There you go. D Jackson said, okay, I was just asking. Yeah, bro, I'm messing. Dougie T says trading back for either Johnson or Frazier. I like that idea. I do like that idea. We'll talk about it. R Getz says, what's up with Steelers and Simmons? You think we will get him? AB tweeted about it today. So take that for what it's worth. He said there's interest or a deal could be imminent within the week. Who knows, man? Who knows? I think it's unlikely. How many other little stories has AB just floated out there as flyers that haven't come true? I think he's got 2 right. He got the Russell Wilson one with the Steelers, and he got the Stephon Diggs one to the Texans. But how many other reports has he thrown out there that have been wrong? Yeah, Terrell87 says CTSPN just reported we will get Simmons soon. I would love it. I think our safety room's fine as is, but getting Justin Simmons would make it a lot better. I think if you get a Simmons, you gotta cut Casey, though. I think you'll get the cap savings from Casey, and I think he just gets pushed out of the lineup if you have Justin Simmons, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Deshaun Elliott. That would be the best safety group in the league. My God, that would be incredible. I would love to get Justin Simmons. What would be his price? You know, he's been sitting there for a minute in free agency. Less than 10? I think less than 10 is reasonable. 8 million. Safety position is very undervalued right now. I don't know if it's undervalued or if it's actually properly valued, but the market's down either way. Like, safeties aren't getting as much money as what they used to. Just literally 2-3 years ago, Simmons signed that massive deal. You got guys like Terrell Edmonds sitting out there. You got a bunch of safeties sitting out there in free agency. You still got some, like a Justin Simmons. Jack Holodinsky says, but Casey on special teams is needed. Yeah, and he would be nice depth for safety, but I'm sure he wouldn't be too thrilled about having Justin Simmons here. Like, you're a backup. I don't think you're getting any playing time. At least right now, I think you could do some type of 3-man safety rotation with him, Minkah, and Elliott. But you get Justin Simmons here. That's the new 3 safety rotation. It's Minkah, Simmons, and Elliott. There's really no room for Casey. It doesn't kill us to keep him. I think you get the cap savings. He does provide nice safety depth if you keep him, but you get the cap savings if you cut him. So it's like a either or type of situation there if we do pick up Simmons. K9S, I'd rather trade for Ayuk than sign Simmons. I don't think it's got to be an either or. We got cap flexibility. We got cap space if we need it. We could sign Simmons and ultimately trade, a second, third round pick to get Ayuk. We do got to give Ayuk a contract, though, if we trade for him. But you can kick the can down the road and make those cap hits more, I guess, prevalent 2 or 3 years down the line, or even next year, and maybe only make his cap hit like 10 million this year. Because Ayuk, he's gonna get a contract 20+ million. But if you don't want that $20 million cap hit right now, yeah, you could jumble the numbers up a little bit, make it like 10 this year, make it 25 next year, 25 the following. You could finagle it around, and Omar Khan is a genius from that aspect. All right, let's just get into. I was going to talk Steelers jersey numbers a little bit, but it's kind of old news. I had some takes on that, but we're talking all these hypotheticals here. I feel the momentum. Let's just get right into these draft trades. So I'll go over the Steelers trading up, and this is more specifically geared toward the first round, trading up, trading down, and then player trades. We already talked about Ayuk, so I won't even bring that one up. Yeah, we could trade a second-round pick, get Brandon Ayuk. Now the 49ers want a first-round pick. I don't know if they're getting that. Like, DeAndre Hopkins in his prime, just like 3, 4 years ago, went for a second-round pick. Why is any team out there gonna wanna give up a first for Brandon Ayuk? And we don't even know if Brandon Ayuk's like a bona fide number 1. He's nice. He's improved every year he's been in the league. Just had a career year last year. Like, he's top 10. But if you make him a number 1 and you're relying on him like we hope to rely on George Pickens, or like the Vikings, how they rely on Justin Jefferson, the Bengals, they rely on Jamar Chase. Is Ayuk doing all that for you? I don't know. I think he is, or has benefited a little bit from being over there with the 49ers and having players like McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel around him and having Kyle Shanahan as his coordinator. I do think he would be the perfect fit for the Steelers as like a wide receiver, 1A, 1B, however you want to claim it. But I think he'd be the perfect fit. He would be a Deontay Johnson upgrade by a fair amount. Much better blocker than Deontay, better deep threat, faster, all that stuff. Almost as good of a route runner. He's a really damn good route runner. But like, are we trying to pay 20 plus, potentially 25 million a year for that and give up a pick? That's the question. I'm up and down on it. If we can get him for like 20 million, 21 million and give up a second, okay, that's more reasonable. 25, I don't want to pay him 25. I think that's where I'm at. Knee-jerk reaction when I first heard the Ayuk rumors, I was like, you know what? Let's just do the trade. Bring in Brandon Ayuk. But now, a little bit more hesitant. But that would be a potential player trade. So I just jumped the gun. I was going to talk about the trade-up scenarios, but I just went to the player trades to start off. Because we were talking about Ayuk. Makes sense. So let's get into the trade-ups. I do have another player trade, but we'll talk about it later. Trading up, first round. This is what I think the most likely scenario would be if you're the Steelers. I think you move up a few spots to like maybe that 15th or 16th range. You trade your 20th, your current first round pick, and a 4th rounder. I was looking at the compensation for trading up a few picks like that. Like last year for that Broderick Jones trade up, all we gave up was, what was it? I wrote it down and I forgot it. Okay, I think, was it a 3rd rounder or a 4th rounder? I was going to look it up. If you guys know in the chat, let me know. I had it written down. No, I obviously didn't have it written down because I wouldn't have deleted it. But I looked it up. I think it was a 3rd or I think it was a 4th rounder. Yes, I'm saying it was a 4th rounder because I have written here the fair compensation would be giving up our 20th and a 4th rounder. Because I think the 4th rounder is what we gave up to get Broderick Jones, and that was earlier in the draft. It was a few spots. It wasn't as many spots as if we were to go from 20 to 15. So 20 and a 4th rounder, maybe even your 2nd, 3rd rounder if you're that desperate. We have that 3rd rounder from the Eagles in the Kenny Pickett trade just chilling there. So we could do that if we really want to trade up. If there's a guy there that we're like, you know what, we can't risk it. I don't think he's falling to 20. Let's just go up and get him. And the 2 guys, well, there's a few positions that we could talk about doing this scenario with, but like the 2 guys for like offensive tackle, I think it would make most sense would be J.C. Latham and Talise Fuaga. Both right tackles. Like, you would know if you pick these guys up, you're moving Broderick Jones over to left tackle. These guys are going to compete with Dan Moore for right, but presumably they're going to beat him out because they play right tackle. You're drafting them in the 1st round. Dan Moore was a former 4th round pick. We've got to see his tape. We've got to see his work a fair amount over these last 3 years. You're drafting one of these dudes to beat out a Dan Moore. But Moore is there for really nice insurance for both the right side and the left side. I think that is a perfect scenario if you're talking about your tackle position. But if you do that, you might be giving up your chance at drafting one of these top 3 centers. But we could talk about that a little bit more here. But you could also, if you're liking one of these cornerbacks, like a Quinyon Mitchell or a Terrion Arnold, you could do pretty much the exact same trade and go up to like 15 or 16 if they're sitting there. If we're high on the corners, we feel like we could get a center in the second round, we might have to trade up in the second round, then you do it. It's just we need a center really bad right now. We don't have a center. That's the one position I feel like you can't miss on. Like, you have to get one of those top 3 centers. I don't know if it's worth the risk then to do this trade up, unless you are for certain you are getting either Jackson Powers Johnson, Graham Barton, or Zach Frazier with another one of your picks. I don't know if that's a guarantee, man. I really don't. Uh, Second round, we got a while till we pick in the second round. We're in that mid to later second round range. I don't think any of those 3 are gonna be there. So this whole trade up scenario is tough for me. I think you're leaving yourself exposed to not getting one of those top 3 centers. Now you get one of these higher end guys, but these aren't the positions I feel like we need center. Right tackle, yeah, it'd be nice. Another cornerback opposite JPJ. It would be nice to get a Quinyon Mitchell or a Terrion Arnold. Wouldn't cost you a ton. Like I said, all you're doing is pick swaps in the first round and maybe giving up your 4th rounder or a late 3rd. But we need a center, man. We need a center. I think we would do more right by our team by just sitting there at 20 and making sure we get a center. Because one of those 3 will be there. Most likely all 3 will be there. But if you take like a Latham or a Fuaga or a Quinyon Mitchell, you trade up to get these guys, or even just not, like I said, if you just sit there at 20 and not take a center, I think you're putting yourself at risk. The last trade up scenario, though, so that's basically the same trade idea right there. You give up your first, you pick swap the first, and you give up a 4th or 3rd. Go from like 20 to like 15 or 16. Get one of those right tackles, maybe a JC Latham, Fuaga, or maybe one of those corners. Quinyon Mitchell, maybe a Nate Wiggins is there, Terrion Arnold. Those guys could also very well drop to us, though. That's the other side of the coin. They could just drop to us, and we don't even have to trade up. And then, if we take one of these offensive tackles or a corner, and we know we need a center in the second, then you could use maybe that 3rd round pick, that late 3rd round pick, or the 4th rounder to trade up in the second to make sure you get Frazier, Barton, or Jackson Powers Johnson. Like, the perfect world would be if you could just sit there at 20, get like a JC Latham, get a Quinyon Mitchell, but then also still get your center somehow in the second round. But that's more risky in my opinion. But the last trade up scenario, sorry for getting a little off track there, is move up into the top 10 and draft one of those tier 1 receivers. So what it took for us going back 2019, I don't know if there's an inflation rate on this type of stuff to trade up into the top 10, but to get Devin Bush in 2019, we traded our 20, which is the same pick that we're picking this year, our 20th overall pick, that year's second rounder, 2019 second rounder, and then next year's 3rd. So if there's one of those elite receivers just chilling there, it's Neighbors, it's Rome Odunze. There's no way Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be sitting there at 10. I don't even think Odunze or Neighbors is going to be sitting there at 10. You'd have to have a pretty significant run on the quarterbacks in those top 5, top 6 picks, but I don't think it's worth it. That's just a trade idea, though. I mean, it's out there. There's those rumors. There's been those connections to Odunze, going back to those Deontay Johnson trade talks. Remember, there was like, hey, Steelers could trade Deontay Johnson, which ultimately we did, but then they really like Odunze. Maybe he's the guy that they target in the draft. They're going to have to trade up to get him to be Deontay's replacement. But as we're sitting right now, man, I don't think it's worth it. I think that's too much. There's a lot of other really good receivers in this draft that you could get in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. And I trust the Steelers in selecting one of those receivers in the 2nd or 3rd round because we've been so successful in doing that in the past. Chase Claypool, even though we see how his career has turned out, he gave us a couple of decent years. He looked like to be a steal whenever we took him in the 2nd round early on. Juju, Martavis Bryant, we got in the 4th round. Mike Wallace, we got in the 3rd. Emmanuel Sanders, we got in the 3rd. George Pickens in the 2nd. So there's there's a really good track record with the Pittsburgh Steelers and drafting receivers in the later rounds, second and third rounds, AB in the sixth, if you even want me to bring him up. We don't got to trade up to get a dude in the top 10. It'd be awesome, but we already have a George Pickens, man. We already have like that dude on this roster, the dude that you're saying could be the next franchise receiver. And he's trending in the right direction. He's just got to keep his antics to a minimum. So I don't like that trade up scenario as much. If I had to pick between the ones, I would go with the first one, just trading up and getting one of those right tackles. I wouldn't even be opposed to the cornerback thing either, as long as we get a center in the second. I like that by trading up to get a right tackle, at least we're improving the offensive line, because I think that's the number one priority. I think by improving the offensive line, the best, we'd be drafting a center. But still, if we don't get a right tackle, it still improves the O-line. That should be our first priority. With the corner, it's a little bit of a luxury, especially with us trading for Dante Jackson. Like he could already be our solid CB2. We could draft a slot in the third, like Jerry and Jones, and that would complete our cornerback room right there. We don't need a Quinyon Mitchell. We don't need a Terry Arnold, as much as I think just flat out we need to improve the offensive line. To do that, I think drafting a center would be our best bet, but getting a right tackle doesn't hurt either. So I like the first trade-up scenario the best. If we want to get one of those top-tier right tackles in Latham or Fuaga. What are you guys saying, though, in terms of trading up? Taro 87, I think it's like one or two teams that really need a center. I think the Seahawks are one of those teams, and they're picking at 16. They're actually one of the teams we could trade up with. Z Straight 23. How many other teams really need a center, though? It's a good point. And we're going to be talking about this trade back scenario in a little bit here. Because typically centers don't go early in the first round. And they're not really drafted in the first round like that. Like if they do go, it's later. It's in the late 20s. But sometimes they don't even go in the first round at all. You look at the last 5 years, I think there was a fair amount. The first center being taken was in the second. So, yeah, it's a really good point. I just know we need a center really bad. Like, we are tipping our hands right now. Like, we need to draft a center. If not, we're in trouble. Unless we trade for a guy. Z Straight 23 says, if a big name receiver is still available, I love the trade up. Oh, man. If it's Neighbors, okay, sure. I think that dude's going to be a star. I'm not as high on Odunze. I think he's good. I mean, he deserves to be in that tier 1 of receivers. But if you're talking about a trade up, I think it's got to be Neighbors. Got to be him. D. Diggins, do you have any news, or how do you feel about Corey Trice? I like his upside. And that's my point, too, with this cornerback room. I think it's pretty solid as is. If we can pick up a slot corner in the draft in like the third round. If we can get a slot corner in there, JPJ, Dante Jackson, slot corner, X, whoever it is, Jerry and Jones, Mike Sanders, so who knows? Maybe we still pick up a guy in free agency. And then you got Corey Trice with his upside shown there, even like a Darius Rush as your CB4 and CB5. Like, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Could we still pick up a Stephon Gilmore? Could we still draft someone? Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. Like a Quinyon Mitchell or a Terry Arnold. That doesn't hurt. But what do we need? I'm just going off what we need right now. I'm going off the information at hand as we sit here Monday, April 8th. And we cannot miss on a center. Flat out. And then I think our next position that we got to look at is right tackle, offensive line. Receiver, I guess, too. Receiver's in the mix. But I feel like we can get a solid receiver in the second or third round versus getting a solid right tackle in the second or third round. You get what I mean? It's almost like the center position, too. We got to get one of those top three. So I'm thinking if we're drafting right tackle, we got to get like a dude we feel like can compete to start day one. If not, you're wasting the pick. Just take a right tackle in the bottom of the third then with your second, third round pick or your fourth round pick. If you want a project, like if you're going to draft the right tackle in the second round or with your early third, I don't think you're feeling as great about that starting day one. You want a guy that can be an upgrade over Dan Moore if you're going to draft right tackle. If you want to leave it as Dan Moore over on the left side, Broderick on the right, so be it. I know a lot of people aren't going to be the biggest fans of that, but if you're going to get a right tackle, do it right. Almost like the same thing with center. If you're going to get a center, just do it right. We can draft the receiver in the third. We could draft 2 receivers in the third. We got a bunch of these upside guys on the roster right now, and Quez Watkins, Callaway, Denzel Mims, Van Jefferson. We got a bunch of these like speedster upside guys. You could add a Luke McCaffrey. You can add a Malachi Corley maybe in the third round. That'd be a good draft right there. Actually, as I'm just going through it in my head, if you get J.C. Latham, Fuaga in the first, somehow get one of those centers in the second. Again, it's risky because I don't know if one of those 3 centers will be there in the second. And then you get a couple receivers, third round. And you're looking good. You prioritize your needs properly if you do it that way. I think O-line is the first priority. Wide receivers up there, but I think the depth at the position is better, and just how we draft receivers, we can afford to wait on that as opposed to center and then even a right tackle. You guys feel what I'm saying there? But if you're not going to draft right tackle, I don't even think you do it till later. If you're going to draft right tackle, do it early. Get the right guy. Same with center. But yeah, that's the balance of this. That's the whole gift and the curse. If you want to take right tackle, then you're risking one of those centers not being there in the second round, or you got to make sure you trade up in the second round. But let's get to these trade down scenarios, and I like these ones. If I had to pick, this is how I would do it. I would trade down and collect some picks. Now, the best option I heard, and I don't know if this is too much of a premium. I don't know if we're getting too much in this. We're getting too big of a haul that this team just wouldn't even think about doing this. But it's the Commanders giving up their 36th overall pick and their 40th overall pick. They got 2 early second-round picks. We give them 20, and we get those 2. And I think one of those centers will be there at 36. Frazier, Barton. Powers Johnson might be gone in the first, but Frazier, Barton there at 36, and then you get this 40th overall pick. Maybe the tackle from Oklahoma is chilling there. Maybe you get a Lad McConkey. You could get one of those stud receivers, but then you also have your 3rd second-round pick in this scenario. You'd have 3 second-round picks where you could just load up on talent. Maybe one of those corners slip. Like, I think that's the scenario. You can get your center. You can get one of those top 3 centers, but then you could load up on depth and you could load up on picks. You get your O-line upgraded. You get your center. And then you just see how the board falls. Maybe you get the dude from Oklahoma there, the tackle from Oklahoma. Maybe you get one of those corners that slip. You get your picks of those, like, round 2 receivers. Like, with where we're sitting right now in the second round, I don't know if you're going to be getting the greatest of fields or just a variety of receivers that'll be there. There might be slim pickings at that point. Whereas if you're sitting there at 40, I think you're getting whoever you want. Do you want Troy Franklin? Do you want McConkey? Do you want Purcell? Do you want one of these dudes from Washington? Like, you'll have your pick. Maybe one of these Texas receivers too, Mitchell or Worthy. There's going to be a decent amount of those receivers there at 40. Whereas, if we're just staying where we're sitting right now in the second round, you might have to deal with what's left. And that's not a terrible thing either, because there's a lot of really good receivers. But then, yeah, you got a chance right there with that trade down of getting a center, of getting a corner and a receiver all in the second round there. I like that probably the best if we're doing the trade down. But probably, even if we look at, would you rather do the trade up or the trade down? I like the trade down. I like the trade down the best because I think we can get our center, but then you're just loading up on picks, man. And we also got those 2 third-round picks as well. You're just loading up on talent there. In a perfect world, if everything played out right, the trade up you love because you could get your right tackle. You make sure somehow, some way, you get one of those top 3 centers in the second. Then you do receivers, corners in the third and the fourth round. But that's a little bit more risky. I think trade down, not really risky because one of those centers will be there with your first, second round pick. If you do this Commanders one, you could also do a pick swap with the Chiefs or one of these other teams that are drafting late in the first, like the Chiefs, Niners, Ravens, and also pick up their second rounder. But then they're picking pretty late in the second round as well. So again, it's just what do you value more? What are you willing to give up? What's the risk reward here? Because with the Commanders, you pick a little bit later with your first pick. You get that early second round pick at 36, but then you also get an earlier second round pick at 40. With the Chiefs, you're still picking with the Chiefs, Niners, Lions, one of these teams, you're still picking late in the first, but then you got that later second round pick at the end of the second. So what do you want more? Texans also have they got the 42nd pick and the 59th pick. They just give those 2 picks up to get our 20th. I don't think that would be worth it for us. But yeah, I could see us trading down. If the board plays out properly, especially if there's a run on those quarterbacks early, the board would play out really good for us if those quarterbacks go early because you could just be sitting there at 20 and maybe not even have to trade up to get a J.C. Latham. Obviously, you'd have those centers there too, but if you're looking at these right tackles like that, they might just be chilling there at 20. You don't even have to trade up if 5 or 6 of the quarterbacks go in the top 15. I saw one mock draft that predicted that. But you could also even trade down too. Like the board will play out really nicely for us if those quarterbacks go, where we're going to have options. Do we just want to sit here and draft Latham or Fuaga if they fall? Or just sit here and draft Jackson Powers Johnson? All right, here's the thing. All right, here's how I'm going to lay it out to you. If the board falls where the QBs go early, I think you either sit there and draft the one of these right tackles if they fall, sit there and draft a right tackle, or if you want to draft the center, I think you trade back and pick up picks in like the second round. Still get your center. Let's say all 3 centers are there. I think you trade back and collect picks. But if you're going right tackle, just take the right tackle. Figure out some way to trade up in the second and then get one of the centers. But yeah, we got options, man. And what's crazy is you'd probably be more right than wrong if you were to bet us making a move or making a trade at some point in this draft. Because Omar Khan did it, twice last year? Traded up for Broderick Jones and traded back and collected picks, ultimately taking Darnell Washington in the third. I mean, it's definitely likely. It's definitely likely we make some type of move here. And you know the slogan right now among Steeler Nation, and Omar Khan we trust. Steeler Fan 532 says, get some dogs up front. Yeah. Yeah, I think O-line's our biggest priority, man. O-line, particularly center. We need receiver too. Orange Cassidy says center, receiver, right tackle, D end, and cornerback needs a priority. I don't think we need D end as bad. I would slide cornerback in front of D end. Terrell 87 says our center position hasn't been solid since Pouncey. We need to find our guy for the next 10 years. It's rough right now. LOL. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's been a struggle. Mason Cole was good for us 2 years ago. I thought he was really solid for us. 2022. Really solid. I didn't even bring up this name. This is a good point. Steelers fan 532 says, I like the dog out of Georgia, or like a dog out of Georgia. I think you're talking about Mims, right tackle. That's what I'm assuming. I didn't even bring him up. I'm a little worried about him, man, with the injuries. I think he's really high upside. I am worried about the injuries. I think he'll be there at 20, but I prefer those 2 other right tackles that I mentioned, Latham and Fuaga. Tree Jolly, would you be surprised if we took a wide receiver first? Uh, yes and no. Yes, because I don't know if it'd be the wisest move, but also no, because we have Omar Khan and, I think you just gotta throw what you expect out the window with him. And it is one of our top 3 needs here, arguably top 2 needs heading into this draft. So, like, it would make a little bit of sense. Wouldn't be the biggest of surprises, but I would be. If you're asking me right now, like, there's moves that could still be had before the draft. We could add to the receiver room still. We could pick up a Tyler Boyd. Although, even if we pick up a Tyler Boyd, I said this how many times, I still think we need to draft the receiver. We need to draft the receiver with more upside. Tree Jolly says, we haven't had a wide receiver weapon in a long time. You're saying it's the top need. I mean, we got Pickens, man. I think Deontay's been good. He has dropped the ball more than we would like. He's had ball security issues, but those have been good receivers. I think quarterback play has been up and down the last 2 years ever since Ben retired. So that has contributed to some of the lack of receiver production. But yeah, I think Pickens is going to be that guy for us, man. I think year 3 Pickens is going to go off. Wilson to Pickens connection is going to be something. But all right, guys, I'm going to head out of here. I do have one more player trade. I'll say it real briefly. I already brought up Ayuk, but we could maybe trade for a center. The name that's being thrown out there is Saints center Eric McCoy. He's been a really solid starter for them since he came into the league. He's got a pretty sizable contract. Saints are always in cap hell. So if they wanted to move off him, just reset their cap a little bit, maybe pick up one of the centers in this draft. This could be a possibility. There aren't really any serious rumors or serious thoughts on this being thrown out there, but someone brought it up to us on the podcast, and I think that would be a good trade to make. If we can't get one of these centers in the draft, or if we just want to make sure that spot is solidified heading into the draft and don't have to worry about, like, is this guy going to be available or not, you just trade for an Eric McCoy. Maybe you give up a 3rd-round pick and you pay him. You just see the rest of his contract out, I guess. You pay him I guess it's like 10, 11, $12 million per year over the next like 3 or 4 years. But if that's what it takes to get a quality center in the house, I don't think that's the worst thing. You got that taken care of. Now you can focus on right tackle, corner, receiver, whatever mix of the 3 you want to prioritize. Let it be that. But all right, I'm out of here, guys. Man, I gotta say this though, real quick. I gotta respond to this comment. Steelers fan 532 says, "Let's go Buccos." Nice lid, bro. Yes, sir. Buccos 8-2. Watch out. Watch out. Penguins are in the playoffs. Good vibes all around for Pittsburgh sports. And then we got the draft coming up with the Steelers. Hopefully Omar Khan makes another move at some point here. Another splash move gets us excited. But stay chilling, everyone. I'm out of here. I'll be back closer to draft time. We got some streams on deck for that. But stay chilling. Peace.